Okay, yeah, I want to do a video about World of Warcraft, even though in my heart of hearts, I'm not really an MMO guy. I like arcade games. I will say this that World of Warcraft, in my opinion, is one of the best games that's ever been made. And I'm going to talk about why I like the game, or rather, why I liked the game, and what I think about this WoW classic stuff, and just what the implications of these things have just for games in general. So just to start off, I would have never played World of Warcraft on my own. I would have never just made the decision by myself to play this game because I felt that morally that it wasn't even right to play an MMO. Just the whole concept of paying a subscription fee, a monthly subscription fee to play a video game. I always found that reprehensible. It disgusted me, and I really didn't even want to give it a shot. And then compounded with that, just the basic gameplay loop of MMOs, to me is a little distasteful as somebody who really likes arcade games because basically, on some fundamental level, all of these EverQuest derived MMO games are essentially just dice rolls. There are certain things you just can't dodge because mechanically the game is just a fucking dice roll, and something's just gonna happen that you can't avoid. And it's basically just a numbers game. And even though there is some stuff that comes closer to being, kind of like quote unquote real time gameplay in World of Warcraft, it still has the roots in that, where there's kind of this whole sort of concept of just random effects that you don't have complete control over, mechanics that you can't weasel your way out of with gameplay finesse. And so it sounds like I'm not going to like the game at all. Like, I'm just going to say, wow, this game is just a complete piece of garbage. But amazingly, despite all of those things, I still think it's one of the best games ever made. And the reason why is because basically this game is just a testament to the triumph of art over gameplay defects. Because basically, you would think that it has so much going against it, based on what I just said, that how could I possibly like this game? But the reason it worked is because the game just has just a completely engrossing environment. I mean, just from the moment you teleport into the world for the first time, everything about the game just feels completely perfect. This game has some of the best music that's ever been put in a video game. It had some of the best environmental art that's ever been put in a video game. Like when you play this game for a long period of time, I mean, really, like it warps your sense of reality, where you feel like you've actually been in these zones. Like, these zones feel like real places. Like, you think of a zone in World of Warcraft like you think of a pizza joint that you used to go to. The environments have that kind of effect on you, and that's incredibly special. I mean that is something that you can't take lightly, and you have to be cognizant of that the people that made the game did something incredibly special, something that's incredibly hard to pull off in a video game. And so that's all fine and dandy, but basically, though, going back to why I even got into playing this game originally. So Painbow, a hunter who played the game and actually still plays the game, he basically kept linking screenshots of the game, kept telling me how great it was, linked review of the game on GameSpot, and And after seeing all this stuff, I eventually caved and gave it a shot. And I'll say this game truly did have some novel features. I mean, you have to figure, back in 2004, like even streaming technology was not commonplace in gaming. People were used to load times. I mean, it's like go back to 2004. Think about it. Look at like Half-Life 2. That game is nothing but load times. You spend half the time playing that game just waiting for the next level to load. And so just the fact that once you teleport into the game, assuming that you don't teleport around, simply the fact that the game effectively didn't have load times, was huge technologically, and part of why the game felt so engrossing because, like the game didn't give you any breaks. It didn't have any dead time. You could just keep going. It just didn't end. And of course, a lot of that was intentional, just to keep you paying the monthly subscription fees. But nevertheless, it is all compelling stuff. And also just just talk a little bit about the game design of this thing. It's brilliant in many ways because essentially, it truly is a social game. I mean, World of Warcraft is essentially the best, most elaborate chat room that's ever been made. That is essentially what the game is on some level. I mean, it is just, if you want to get anything done in the game, it is a social experience. You cannot ignore other people and actually completely explore the game. It simply isn't possible. You are dependent on other people, and there really is no point in playing the game if you're going to play it solo. I mean, it's like right now, I'm just kind of just running around on some private realm, and playing the game single player. But this sucks. Like this isn't what the game actually is. Even on this level 22 character I have, playing on some shady European private realm, just in getting to level 22, I've already, grouped with dozens of people, had conversations with them while doing quests or grinding or doing a dungeon, and it just is fundamentally an aspect of this game. Like people are just social in this game because like I said, at the end of the day, you fundamentally can't really do anything unless you interact with other people in the game. I mean, you need to work together as a team to clear the the hardest, or well, I don't know about hardest, but the final content in the game. And there is something special about it because basically, if you play World of Warcraft, the 2019 iteration of the game, whatever the expansion is, you basically can play the game solo. You can just say, I'm going to log in, I'm going to click some buttons and just be teleported into a dungeon, and I will, just watch an episode of Seinfeld while bosses die, and I don't have to talk to a single person, and I'll randomly get some loot here and there, and that's it, whatever, who cares? But basically, that just simply is not how the original game worked. You had to communicate with people. You had to you had to actually be a social person because basically, if you think about it, the original game required inordinate amounts of time to do raiding. I mean, basically, if you were going to do the very highest end rating in the game, you were spending dozens of hours with these people. Like, you were not going to raid with people that you couldn't even tolerate essentially hanging out with online. And so the whole the whole scenario played out differently. I mean, you basically had to, at least on some level, find the people that you were playing with pleasant and actually want to spend time with them, and so there is something really interesting there, and also you can't just ignore the word massive in MMO. It did feel massive when you played the original World of Warcraft, just because there were just tons of people always running around. You did 40-man raiding, and there was just a sense of scale that the game had that was very compelling at the time. I mean, even though there were, Quake and, Quake 3, the servers where you could actually play like single, or rather 64 player, or actually it's really fun. I remember that there was a Quake 3 server way back in like, 2000 or something. It was like a 100 player server or something. It was crazy, and I remember playing DM17 on that server, and so yes, in terms of pure numbers, there was nothing like that novel about it, I guess, but I'm just saying, you just have to think about it. I mean, you had something where people had invested, dozens of hours, hundreds of hours into characters that got to a point where they could do some, fairly elaborate raid, and it was essentially, people. Rehearsing for a performance. When you couldn't kill a boss for days or weeks, and everything finally clicks, and you're with 39 other people, and everything starts to work. It really is like synchronized swimming or something, where just everything just there's so much harmony and unity, and just a sense of some play being performed or something. It's a really fascinating experience, and it is pretty much unique to MMOs, because playing traditional games, it just simply isn't like that. You don't have that kind of dependence on that number of people just to complete all of the the content in the game. So there's something very compelling about the game. And also, just even stuff like, it's like, yes, you can criticize the game. It's like, Dark Souls plays a million times better than World of Warcraft, and just on a fundamental mechanical level, World of Warcraft is a complete piece of trash compared to something like Dark Souls. However, you have to factor in that there is also something incredibly compelling about the fact that you can literally, it's like, look, like right now, you can literally play this game. I'm just clicking with a mouse, while talking. You can literally play this game with one hand, just by clicking on icons on the screen. The barrier, for entry in this game is incredibly low. And I remember, when I raided in the original World of Warcraft. There were like soccer moms in the raid in Nax Ramus, that were doing pathetic DPS and pretty much worthless. But the point, though, is that really, like, pretty much anybody could play this game. You didn't have to be a quote unquote gamer, or hardcore gamer, whatever you want to call it, to actually play this game. And so there was something just almost, oh man, I'm gonna get my ass kicked. This guy's an elite. There was something just inherently, accessible and approachable. Oh man, this guy's gonna roll me. And see, here's another example too. See, it's just like, I wasn't paying attention, and I just ran into a random elite and got my ass kicked. There is something compelling about this game world where, the world is alive and dangerous and mysterious and engrossing and seamless, and yet at the same time, the actual mechanics of the game are so incredibly simple that a grandma can play it. And so that's what I mean. So it's like, even though, like, on paper you could say, well, I can imagine some scenario where somebody makes some MMO in the future where it's basically like Dark Souls, the MMO, right? It has completely real-time gameplay. Somebody throws a projectile at you. You can be a really good player and just like roll out of it and dodge it, and you can like parry attacks and do all this crazy stuff. Yeah, that's fine, whatever. But if you did that, then soccer moms wouldn't be able to play the game anymore. So in a way, even by theoretically improving the game, it's not going to be quite as compelling, as it was in other ways. So like I said, there is some balance that they achieved with this game. There's a magic formula that they stumbled on with this game, that explains why it was so wildly successful and why it was so compelling to so many people. It's very difficult to tweak this formula and get it as perfectly as they did with this game, and that's why even Activision today can't really recreate it. They can't really capture it because because there is, it's just like they just kind of stumbled upon it almost. It's like I don't think that they even really, the people that made it didn't even really know what they had. It just kind of happened. And you can see that just by how they didn't expect the game to be anywhere near as popular and successful as it was. And so that's what I mean. Like, this is a perfect example. Here's this Taskmaster Whipfang character who will kick my ass because he's an elite, and I can't kill him solo. If I want to kill this guy, I basically have to talk to other people. I have to say, hey, does anybody want to kill this guy, and we can form a group and do it. I mean, it truly is a social game. There is something really compelling and amazing about this game. So that's all fine and dandy. I've talked about why I like the game, things that make it so compelling, and all of that, and that's fine and dandy. But the real question though is that so if that's all true, then what's the deal with WoW Classic, and how is WoW Classic going to do? Is WoW Classic going to be a huge success? Is WoW Classic a bad idea? All that kind of stuff. It's so basically here are just kind of my thoughts on WoW Classic. So basically, I mean, first of all, the fact that they're even making WoW Classic is Activision admitting defeat. You would never, re-release an old game like this while the current game is still going on, unless your current game was in major trouble. You're just not going to do it. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it takes resources, it takes time, it takes money to do something like WoW Classic, and people are not going to spend it on two games at the same time if the current game was healthy and they thought that people were just going to go along and keep dumping tons of money into the game. So basically, the fact that it exists at all basically tells you that WoW is on its way out. It is dying. Which, I mean, really, it's like, I mean, the game is 15 years old. Give me a break. Nothing lasts forever. And so, so that is there. But you also have to think about, though, like, why as many people are as hyped up about it as they are right now. And I think a lot of it has to do, not just with the fact that, the current game is, stale and boring and crappy. You also have to factor in that there are many mistakes that they made along the way with this game, that doing a reset, starting over, and basically saying that we're going to create this permanent version of the original game addresses. So basically, one thing that they've always had a problem with in World of Warcraft is that throughout the lifespan of the game, they have constantly pulled the rug out from under players. So just as an example, it's like say, you make a warrior and you play a warrior and you really like the way warriors play and you really like them mechanically. Well, one day you wake up and you log into the game and now your character is completely different. Your character now sucks. Your character now is way less effective than the character used to be. The character now plays completely differently, and maybe the way it plays now isn't something that you like anymore. And so you just spent hundreds of hours getting used to something that is now completely different in a way that potentially you don't like. And also, you could be somebody who played the game, and if you don't, continue to buy expansions, or even if you do buy expansions, content that you quote unquote paid for is just removed from the game. So stuff that you liked is just no longer in the game, and you can't access it anymore. I mean, a perfect example would be like Zul'Gurub. I mean, that is a raid that was in the original game, in like 2005. And the original version of that is just gone now. Like, you can't play that now in the current game, even if you want to. It's just gone. Which is really ridiculous when you think about it. I mean, even ignoring the fact that it's like a subscription game and it's online only, and they're always patching everything, there are some fundamental game development principles that I feel that Activision betrayed and really bungled, and that's basically, you never take things away from players. Um, as soon as you give a player something, it's now your responsibility to support that. They paid for that, they expect it to be there, and you are a complete asshole if you take that away from your players. It's just box office poison. It's a stupid idea. It's a bad idea, and there's no justification for it, and you should never do it. Only add, only expand, never take away. I mean, there's a reason that we call these things expansions and not contractions. I don't want a contraction. I don't want to pay for some new game that takes things away that used to be there. It's completely idiotic. And this is just compounded over 15 years, where if you really look at it, there is so much shit that used to be in the game that isn't in the game anymore. It's just ridiculous. And so of course people are going to be nostalgic for something that doesn't exist anymore, because basically, yeah, I mean that stuff isn't even available anymore. It's like, if you want to, you can always go back and play an arcade game in MAME. It's preserved forever. Nobody can take it away from you. But World of Warcraft has content that was taken away from you. It's just gone. And so of course it makes perfect sense for people to be nostalgic and excited about having access to something that that is no longer available. So I think that is perfectly reasonable, and even though I do believe that nostalgia is a bad thing. I mean, just like as an example, like, I don't play games in MAME because I'm nostalgic. I play games because I think that they're good, and I think that they're the best thing that I could be doing at the time, and I think they're awesome. Like I don't play a game just because I have fond memories of it. Like, it has to hold up. I mean, it's just like, for example, I'm not gonna play Super Mario Brothers 1 today. I'm not gonna play that game. No. Yoshi's Island is better than Super Mario Brothers in every single way. I would never play Super Mario Brothers, the original 8-bit Nintendo game, over that one. I wouldn't. Whereas, like, I would play Samurai Showdown 2 today because I don't like any of the Samurai Showdown sequels after 2, and I feel that was the apex of the series, and I still feel that it is, the best game of that type, and so that's why I still love to play that game. I'm not a nostalgic person, and so given all that, the question is, it's like, well, does World of Warcraft hold up? Is it only nostalgia? And I would say, for all of the reasons that I listed, there are still some compelling things there. There are things that you can't get anywhere else that you can get in this game, which really is more kind of an indictment of the gaming industry in general, because there really is no excuse for it. It should have been possible to completely outdo this game by now, but game developers tend to be pretty fucking incompetent, man. Games have actually really fucking sucked in the past 10 years or so. It's actually kind of embarrassing. And just even basic stuff. I mean, like I said, I got to give this game credit where credit is due. This game's UI is actually, completely ingenious. I mean, this game has a very pleasant user interface. There is nothing about the original game's user interface that makes me angry or pisses me off. Like, everything just looks good and feels right. It's like, even when I look at, like, the talent tree, it's got the nice background art. All of the icons in the game are awesome. All of the fonts in the game are awesome. Just overall, the presentation of this game is just absolutely top tier, AAA stuff. When people go like, play some random shitty MMO that some other company made, and then you'll look at it and it has like ugly fonts and the UI looks stupid and things aren't polished. It's like, no, of course it's not going to be as good as World of Warcraft. They didn't even get the basic shit right. Like I said, this game is a triumph of implementation. This is basically proof that implementation is everything. Because, like I said before, I think that the basic gameplay loop in MMOs sucks. I think that the auto-attacking, global cooldown, dice roll bullshit is actually terrible. I think it's terrible. Like this right now, like this gameplay shit. This is shit gameplay. but everything in the game is implemented so perfectly. It's such a perfect implementation of shit that the game is pleasant to play. I mean, just even like basic stuff like just jumping in this game feels good. You watch people play this game, they just jump around. They just fucking jump because everything in the game just feels good. I mean, basically, World of Warcraft is empirical evidence that you can polish a turd. You can take EverQuest, a terrible, grindy, shitty MMO that has terrible gameplay, and you can fill it with awesome environmental art and amazing music and a beautiful user interface, a polished UI, and you can make the game completely compelling. I mean, like I said, it's a fascinating game to study because it really is just proof that implementation in games is everything. It isn't about ideas. Ideas in games are completely worthless. They're all about the implementation. But basically though, I can understand why people are excited about getting access to stuff that they didn't have access to anymore. And now I'm going to talk about why I feel that the route that they chose on World of Warcraft Classic, like the way they chose to implement it, was actually a huge mistake, and why it undermines like the whole point of the game. So basically, when it came time to say, all right, we're going to do this, classic version of World of Warcraft. How are we going to do it? Are we going to take our original source code and polish it up and do some security patches and integrate it with Battle.net and add a direct 3D12 backend render or whatever and just get the game up and running? But the game is basically exactly the same. All the logic is exactly the same. All of the behavior is exactly the same. We basically just did some kind of like chocolate doom thing where we basically just made sure that we updated the original implementation to be all fine and dandy on common machines and all that stuff that are available today. Okay, so they basically said no, we're not going to do that. They made the decision to take essentially the modern game client, but update all of the database data of the old game so that it's compatible with the current version of the engine. And the reason that I think that this single-handedly doomed the entire thing and made the whole thing pointless is because the whole appeal of this is that it is a frozen snapshot in time. It's basically just saying like, okay, we're going to say, we're going to take the 2006 game and we're going to freeze it. And we're going to preserve it until our company goes out of business and people will be able to play it. And it'll never change. And it'll be just like it was in 2006. And you always have that to go back to. And we can't take it away from you. A patch isn't going to remove something. A patch isn't going to change a character's behavior. This is how it originally was, and it's how it'll always be. It's permanence. It's that thing that is lacking from the current game. You're never going to have the carpet pulled out from under you. It's always going to be this. It's just like if you play Street Fighter 2 in MAME. That Street Fighter 2, man, it's never changing. The balance is never going to change. You're not going to, run MAME one day and find out that Guile is way stronger or weaker than he used to be when you played Street Fighter in MAME a month ago. And that is the appeal of this. That permanence, that comfortable warm blanket that you can always roll up in, and it'll never be taken away from you. However, here's the whole problem. You can't simply migrate old data that was made for a client that came out like 13 years ago and simply shoehorn it into a modern program that isn't necessarily going to be completely compatible with it. And you can already see this. I mean, people have literally found hundreds of problems with the game. Hundreds of little errors, little bugs, little subtle things that are different, little minuscule aspects of the gameplay that are different. And on the surface, you might think, well, that's not a big deal because they're just little things, and so what, right? But here's the whole problem, though. By introducing all these little problems, all these little bugs, all these gameplay variations, it basically means that the game is going to be a never-ending series of patches. Because they're going to find a problem, and then what are they going to do? They're going to patch it. And so now there's going to be a new version of WoW Classic. And it's going to, oh man, if these Alliance see me, I'm going to get fucking rolled. Priest and a Warlock, good luck with that. Yet another reason that you can't play this game solo. These fucking Alliance, see, they're eyeballing me. Yep, they're fucking eyeball. See, that's why this game is fucking awesome, man. It's like this is just Lord of Flies. You know, you're in this world, and you're meat on the menu, and you basically have to, group up with other people to survive in it. It's hilarious and compelling, and but basically though, here's the thing: the game is going to be a never-ending series of patches. Yep, see, look at that, just like fucking clockwork, man. They're gonna patch the game. They're gonna tweak things. They're gonna change things. The character that was more powerful is going to be less powerful. Whatever, right? Things are gonna change over time. And man, it's so look at this fucking gnome, man. He's just out for blood. He wants it so fucking bad, man. God, that's fucking great. You know what? And let me go off on one more tangent too, because I really do want to record and capture all of the reasons why I think this game is so good. Just even the character models in this game. The character models in this game are primitive and low triangle count and terrible. However, there is just something about these characters. It's like they look sympathetic. They're like looking at puppies. It's like you look at these character models and you care about these characters. There's just something like you want to protect these characters. Like I said, it's like looking at like a baby deer or something. But that's what I'm saying though. As soon as you introduce bugs into the game, as soon as you admit that, a rogue is fucking on me. Man, it's fucking, it is. It's just, they're out for blood on this fucking PvP realm, man. Rogues distracting me. But the point though that I really want to make here is that as soon as you introduce development into the game, you basically say, okay, this game isn't a done deal. We have to patch it. Like it isn't going to be. Oh, here we go. This motherfucker. Hopefully, I can proc some. Oh God, you son of a bitch. Yeah, I'm fucking dead. So, oh yeah, of course. So as soon as you admit that the game is going to require patches and it isn't just going to be a fixed thing set in stone, you take away the permanence. People are not going to feel secure in their characters. They're going to say, oh well, what happens when I log in today? Is my character going to be weaker? Is there going to be some change in mechanics that mean that the character doesn't play the way I like anymore? And so on. And that's a real issue, like when the whole benefit of this is that you want that fixed, static, permanent slice of time, and you want to be able to go back to that. So like I said, so basically, they basically doomed it right there. You can't simply take a different modified engine and have it run 100% faithfully the same way as the original game. And like I said, they are going to be patching WoW Classic for months, if not years. It'll take them forever. It'll take them so long to even get close to everything being right that people are going to be playing the game. They're going to be sick of it before they even patch things to the point where they're even approaching authenticity. So like I said, it's just stupid. They made the wrong decision. They should have started with the original client. They should have just patched that. I'm sure, just being a C++ program, the thing is nothing but security vulnerabilities, and I can understand why they had those reservations, but ultimately it was the wrong decision. It would have taken them less time. It would have been more authentic and less problematic in the long run if they had just patched the original game, because it's going to take way longer to actually try to modify some new thing to behave like an old thing than it would have been to just take what was there and just patch it to fix any security vulnerabilities and support whatever new hardware and operating systems they wanted to do. So I said they fundamentally blew it there. It isn't going to be authentic. That people are going to be complaining that things are different, and they're going to be complaining about the never-ending stream of patches. And so I think they did just fundamentally blow it there. And like I said, I mean, on some level too, it's just like you just have to face reality. I mean, the game is 15 years old. It is 15 years old, and dynamically streaming in levels isn't impressive anymore. And everybody knows everything that's going to happen in the game. There are no surprises, and so I think all of those things are just going to add up. Where it's like, yeah, people might be into it for a little while, but it just like at some point you have to make a new game. At some point somebody is going to have to make a next generation MMO. They're going to have to follow up on this, and they're going to have to be, the revolution that the original World of Warcraft was. It's just unavoidable. At some point, you have to just take the next step. You can't just keep regurgitating and recycling shit. So I think just for those reasons, it probably was, just a bad idea, because in a way it's kind of like the worst of both worlds. It's like the game isn't going to be authentic because they didn't use the original engine, but on the other hand, it doesn't, it's not, I mean, because it's all just like the old stuff, it's also not going to be like a fresh, exciting new game that people haven't experienced before. So it's this weird combination of old and new that I think ultimately isn't going to satisfy any audience, because there are going to be really hardcore people that want it to be exactly as it was in 2006, and then there are going to be people who kind of like stuff that they changed about the game and aren't going to like the fact that leveling was extremely slow, and you basically slowly plodded along and walked around, and just the whole pacing of everything was incredibly slow. Like I said, it's just it's a weird Frankenstein monster of old and new, and I just 2019, there's that episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza is continually trying to come up with distractions to avoid getting a job, and they try growing mustaches, and they do other stuff like that. And at some point, Jerry just tells George, he said, okay, look, you got to get a job. And then George finally admits it and says, defeated, he says, I know. And it's the same thing I have to say to Activision. Activision, at some point, you got to do some work. You got to make a new game. You can't just keep fucking cannibalizing your World of Warcraft child here forever. At some point you got to stop resting on your laurels, and you have to make something new. If you don't, somebody else is going to do it. I mean like really, I don't know if it'll happen, just because it's actually not easy to do, and companies are so shitty and lazy. I'm skeptical whether they'll even try to undertake it, but I do kind of feel that you could make like a really compelling next generation MMO if you essentially just made like a Dark Souls MMO. I mean, it's clear that the Dark Souls games captured the imagination of gamers, and it's clear that there's something like really compelling and special there, and all it's really missing is persistence. I mean, can you imagine a game that had like the gameplay nuance and precision control of a Dark Souls game, but it was actually in the context of an MMO, and you could persistently group up with people and play it cooperatively and have communities and all that stuff. I mean that would be incredibly compelling. It hasn't happened yet, just because it's really hard to get internet multiplayer right. It's really hard to do real-time gameplay over the internet, just because the internet sucks and is incredibly unreliable and laggy and shitty. And that's basically the only reason it doesn't exist already. but really though, I mean, the company that cracks that, the company that takes that next step forward with internet multiplayer and gets it right, they are going to have another gold mine. Gold mine. It'll be big if they do that. I mean, and maybe even From Software will eventually do it. I don't know. But I said whoever does it though, I mean that is going to be big. Um, Something needs to happen with this genre to keep it going because, like I said, you can't just keep making EverQuest. I mean, like the original World of Warcraft polished the turd that was EverQuest. It is so polished and nice. You got to take it a step forward. And so, like I said, I mean, I could see that. I could see somebody basically doing what Blizzard did with EverQuest. Somebody says, like, you know what, Dark Souls is really compelling. It's really interesting. The pieces are all kind of there, but it's just really rough around the edges. Like the multiplayer code sucks, and it's really unreliable and crappy, and a lot of the mechanics are just really like kind of goofy and broken. But there's just some core goodness there that is incredibly compelling. Like I said, if somebody were to polish Dark Souls in the same way that Blizzard polished EverQuest, it would be truly amazing. And so all that is just to say, you really have to look at the issues of game, preservation seriously. You really have to consider. Oh God damn it! I'm gonna get fucking rolled again by this elite. You really have to take. Oh man, you son of a bitch! You really have to. I keep missing these elites. I'm not paying attention because I'm just playing. You really have to think about all these issues, with revitalizing old games, because basically, if you like, for any game, if your selling point is authenticity, and that is how Activision is trying to sell this, like the literal tagline of this game is, experience Azeroth as it was. Well, a 2018 or whatever version of the client that they use isn't Azeroth as it was. It's basically Azeroth as it is with some migrated database data. So so don't feed people that line of bullshit when it really isn't authentic. I mean, it's like essentially what they're doing is, actually, there's a really good analogy for it. In the 2016 Doom, parts of the game have ported maps from the original Doom, and just because of the differences in the engine and the way rendering is done and lighting and all that, like they look kind of weird, they look kind of shitty, and the scale is off, and there are all kinds of little problems. That's exactly what WoW Classic is. It's shoehorning old data into a modern engine, and nothing really quite works right, and it's like sort of there but not really, kind of, sort of, not really, and it just shows you why that kind of shit doesn't work. Like you're either authentic or you're not. It's a binary thing. You can't be sort of authentic. You're either authentic or you're not, and so they just fundamentally screwed the pooch there. So yeah. So I really don't think that it's gonna be as great as some people think it is. I mean, a lot of people are kind of thinking like, oh man, this is just gonna be some. It's going to be the revolution that it was in, 2005 or whenever it really started to get big. And like, no, it isn't. The game is old as the fucking hills, and everything has a shelf life. And just because it inherently isn't as fresh as it was back then, it isn't going to be like it was. But I just wanted to kind of, give the original game my kudos. Just to recognize that yes, it is old and it is played out now and it is pretty much in its death throes. But there was something truly special with this game. This was a truly special game. It's always gonna have a place in my heart. I just think that it's really unfortunate that the company that made it doesn't exist anymore. I mean, Activision essentially bought them out, and like basically the company that made a game like this doesn't exist right now, and so that's why there hasn't been a next generation World of Warcraft. That's why there hasn't been a next generation thing that really took it over, because there is a gap. So yeah, okay. So one final thought, that I'll end this on. I mean, essentially, um, I believe that people want to feel what they felt in 2004. They don't literally want to play the 2004 game again. They want to feel how they felt back then. That is the appeal of this. That's the nostalgia grab here. It's like, oh, relive these experiences, feel all these great feelings you got again. But see, that's the thing. You can't take an old thing that's played out that people already know inside and out and feel the same way about it that you used to feel later on. Ironically, the only way to create the experience of the original World of Warcraft is to make something new. That is the only way to recreate the experience of World of Warcraft. You have to make something that's completely new and compelling and enthralling, that sucks people in again. That is the only way to recreate World of Warcraft, is to actually create something new. I mean, it's kind of funny, isn't it? That you actually, the only way to experience what people experienced in 2004 is to make a completely fresh and new game. I mean, so that's the reality. Um, you know, if you want nostalgia, if you want to relive things exactly as they were, that's what emulation is for. That's where you're literally getting back exactly what you had, with absolutely no changes. And so essentially, because of the decision that Activision made here, you are never truly going to get to play this game as it was until the company goes out of business and somebody, eventually anonymously leaks all the source code, and then people can just, actually, host their own authentic, servers that people can play on. That's the only time that you're actually going to, be able to play this game again, yeah, as it actually was, unfortunately.